May Jesus be praised and onward with Mary. Good and holy day to all of you. Dear children, in the sacred hearts of Jesus and Mary, and in the most chaste heart of Saint Joseph. Welcome back to our carefully prepared morning segment, a time when we invite you to enjoy saints and coffee. Today is Tuesday, the 18th of March, on the eve of the great solemnity of Saint Joseph. Today we also remember Saint Cyril of Jerusalem, this holy bishop and doctor of the Church, who also fought strenuously against Arianism. These are the days in which the Church invites us through the Lenten journey to penance, prayer, and fasting. But they are also days in which, on a global level, we witness a ever clearer unrest, that's how I have defined it, of the global geopolitical chessboard, a topic to which I would like to dedicate some time, even today. Well, last night there was the catechesis of the Confraternity of the Most Holy Rosary, which, however, is currently open to everyone. You can find it available on the playlist of Radio Domina Nostra. The post, The Queen of Mercy, Decisive Challenge, I had the opportunity to talk about the deliberately distorted interpretation. The theme of mercy is present because God is love and mercy, but He is also justice and will. And it demands from us conversion and repentance for our sins. Let us never forget it, dear children. Let us never forget it. Faith and salvation do not come cheap, if it is true that the Son of God ascended the cross to redeem us. Here then, also this evening, today is Tuesday, I am expecting you. For the catechesis on the prologue. Here it is. It is the 10th episode. And we're still stuck at the prologue. I had mentioned it to you, if you remember, from my book, the first volume of commentary on the Gospel of John, The Eagle and the Sun. The eagle in John is the bird that can apparently gaze at the sun's rays with its own eyes. This is the apostle and evangelist John. The sun is the Logos, the Word of God. We still have time to dedicate to the prologue. We are, however, at the final stages of these 18 verses, which, for those who have followed all the episodes, are a compendium, a parva summa, an extraordinary synthesis of the Christian faith. So I look forward to seeing you this evening. That's the post. Share it, YouTube channel of Radio Domina Nostra, where I invite you to subscribe. And also, always give likes, as they are important, and I remind you to support the project. In particular, I would like to address all the small group who listen to me through the channel Nostra Radio Domina Nostra. One important thing is the following. We have, as you know, a youth seminar. The seminar is called This After Direction. Back to me. Thank you. We have a seminar, a youth seminar called Saint 𝐾𝐻 of Ars, and we organized it together with our priests from the sodality. And it is naturally a remarkable undertaking, which has a cost, which has an expense to be faced. And then I remind you that the start of work on the small tabor is still frozen. We are in the week of the transfiguration of Jesus, and so the situation fits perfectly. That is, we have in Trebissalege this chapel of the Tabor of Christ the King, whose renovation works made available by the municipality. However, these works remain frozen because there are no funds. There are no funds because what arrives is barely sufficient for all those existing items that you already know. I therefore make an appeal to, as we approach Easter and the eve of the feast of Saint Joseph, who is the Father of Providence. Remember, dear children, that these two projects need help, in particular the seminary and the small tabor. I cannot give, imagine my sorrow, but this time I cannot say yes to starting the works. If, however, there is not, first of all, a specific voice of someone or a couple of some who they readily make themselves available to assist with the implementation of the project. Here now I am, yes. The items listed in the description to support the project are the postal current account, the bank current account, and the PayPal. We are therefore on the eve of St. Joseph. We pray to him with great devotion. Also today at 6:30, if you like, we will pray the Holy Rosary together. Here we will pray the Holy Rosary together. On the eve of St. Joseph, I expect many of you, and it would be nice if fathers prayed dear female voices. Today, let's make room for male voices to pray the Holy Rosary together. And tomorrow, this evening here at 9 o'clock, the catechesis, as I told you about the prologue, and tomorrow we finally meet, for those who can, in Verona. See you in Verona, always at the same place. The one at the Montresor Hotel Tower on Mantegna Street, number 30 at 4 o'clock for the Solemnity of St. Joseph, the feast of the Patriarch St. Joseph, who had the grace to be the putative father of Jesus and the most chaste spouse of the Blessed Virgin. Mary, therefore, was the head of the Holy Family. It's not insignificant, all of this. It's not insignificant. We'll meet there for the Holy Rosary. The blessing of the bread, which will be distributed after the Mass, a small loaf for each person. I thank the benefactor who is making this gift for the small group coming to Verona. I expect many of you, because it is the last celebration before I go to the Central South. It is the last celebration in the North, after about 3 months that I have been here, and since January that I have been traveling. I hope many of you will come because I would like to greet you, embrace you, and wish each of you a holy Easter. Today is Tuesday. 2 days ago we were in Bologna, and there was a crowd of approximately 300 people. It is not necessary to broadcast the images. Approximately 300 people. There were families, young people, children, adults, men. It is truly a people who responds, a people who responds, and tomorrow I am sure it will be the same. Well, we will say then in Dad, because tomorrow is Father's Day, and also the day of all workers. Finally, we will also give the scapular of the most chaste heart of St. Joseph's spouse. Therefore, we expect many of you to come. The entrance is free. There is no need for a reservation, even though it is a weekday. We hope it goes as well as on the 5th of March, when it was a Wednesday weekday dinner, yet the response was extremely generous. We were more than 400 faithful. The 5th Wednesday, March, but maybe tomorrow we could be a few more. At this point, I remind you of the upcoming appointments, because I wouldn't want them to slip by, focused as we are on St. Joseph. The fact is that the weekend has 2 very important appointments. Next Saturday, the 22nd of March, we will be in 𝐜𝐵𝐼 in the province of Ancona. We are finally returning to the Marche region. It is the first stop heading towards the Central South, leaving the North. We leave the Lombard Kingdom, the Republic of San Marco. We leave the Savoy, the Lombards, the Emilians, and the Romagnols, and head towards the Central South. So Saturday, the 22nd of March, as you can see, we are at Rente Osimo, Via dei Tilli, Osimo, Ancona, at 4 o'clock. We are expecting the small remainder of the Marche region that we haven't met for a while. And Sunday, the 23rd, the next day, next Sunday, the 3rd Sunday of Lent, we shall be spending our time in the enchanting region of Tuscany, specifically in Lucca, at the Grand Hotel 𝐵𝐼nigi, located on Via Romana 1247 in Lucca, for the small remainder of Tuscany. These are days of grace, and naturally these stages. In Ancona on Saturday, in Lucca on Sunday, and then the 25th of March, the Solemnity of the Annunciation with the blessing of pregnant women in Terni, Saturday the 29th of March in Teramo, Sunday the 30th of March in Naples, Saturday the 5th of April in Bari, and Sunday the 6th of April in La Mezzia at Terme. These are also occasions to greet you and wish you a holy Easter, the resurrection of Jesus. Even though, and I conclude every day, as you know, there is the magazine, the Almanac of the Small Remainder, I conclude this introductory section by saying that we priests do not leave you alone. The fellowship devotes itself in a remarkable manner, like in the times of apostolic medieval raids and even of the apostolic age, that is, Father Ioannis. He will be in Lombardy. Father Ioannis will be in Lombardy from Palm Sunday, remaining there break time until Easter Sunday. In the coming days, the locality and the place where he will celebrate will be specified. The seminarians will be distributed with us priests to ensure the liturgical service is guaranteed. This is regarding Father 𝐼𝐼ONCI in Lombardy. However, even more significantly, Father Ramon, whom I thank and we thank, will be available. Here you see his busy schedule. May the Lord assist him and always give him enthusiasm and health. Don Ramon. He will be in Turin City, not in Savigliano, on Holy Thursday. And Maundy Thursday is the day of the Mass of the Lord's Supper, the institution of the Eucharist, the washing of the feet, and Good Friday for the adoration of the cross, the way of the cross, the kissing of the Holy Cross. Don Ramon will move time to Verona. Finally, he will hold the Easter Vigil in Tuscany. On Good Friday, more precisely in Veneto, he will be in Asolo, in the province of Treviso. This will be clarified better, of course. Instead, Don Pavel will be in Rome, and I between Celestino in Sicily and Don Enrico in Puglia. So as you can see, there is ample opportunity to organize, even though the heroic Father Pavel will be in Rome on Easter Day in the morning, and in the afternoon he will go to Naples. In short, how can we assist you better than this? Let's not forget it all. The brothers and sisters of the small Sardinian remnant know that for obvious reasons, if the number of priests increases, everything changes. But as long as we are these 6, we must be patient. We connect with Radio Domina. The Masses will be celebrated live during the Triduum of the entire Holy Week. And then after us, as you know, dear Sardinian brothers, we care about you. In turns, we manage to come, we manage to reach you. Here, this is a bit of an overview of the program. However, the main celebration will be tomorrow, meanwhile, in Bussolengo for the Solemnity of St. Joseph. I would like to say a word about St. Joseph later on, also tomorrow morning, by the way, in the segment Saints and Coffee. But today's title, the window for today that the director now presents to you, is quite emblematic. Here it is, Syria and Ukraine, or Ukraine, and the fake photo of Bergoglio in brackets, 𝐼𝐼ONCI. There are 2 terms, as you can see, obviously different, but I would like to dedicate some space to this first consideration about Syria and Ukraine. Then a scoop. We congratulate 𝐼𝐼ONCI on having discovered something sensational. Nothing new under the sun about the love affair. It's a pity that the conclusion 𝐼𝐼ONCI reaches is completely illogical, as we will now have the opportunity to demonstrate. In fact, I would like to announce it right away. But if it is true that there is an administrator in the Vatican acting in place of the Pope in relation to Bergoglio, as 𝐼𝐼ONCI claims, how is it possible for these things to happen? Dr. 𝐼𝐼ONCI, I don't know. Well, let's get back to us now. For a moment we go with congratulating 𝐼𝐼ONCI for the scoop he managed to uncover. That is, that the photo published in recent days is not from these days, but from a week earlier, if not even before. And 𝐼𝐼ONCI was able to prove it. We will see if, in fact, the mainstream media will be able to convincingly refute this scoop. It is clear that 𝐼𝐼ONCI evidently revealed to us, even in the past when we were collaborating, that he is surrounded by people who help him, who in this sense collaborate with him. I, on the other hand, as far as I'm concerned, for example, prepare everything myself. I have no collaboration from this point of view regarding the news. Evidently, those who collaborated with him, if he got there, really. He has done a valuable job to demonstrate once again that indeed, is the false church. Because Dr. 𝐼𝐼ONCI, I tell you as a theologian and as a friend, where there is a lie, as you have pointed out, there is the devil. Where there's deceit, there's the devil. Let's get back to it. Let's start instead with the very first issue, namely the situation in Syria and Ukraine, which have attracted considerable attention and raised urgent questions among experts in recent times across the global community. In these weeks, amidst the pervasive silence that has stunned the world media, a truly dramatic tragedy is unfolding as a massacre strikes the Syrian people in an alarming manner within Syria. We have more and more news leaking through unofficial information channels, those, to be clear, that do not correspond to the mainstream, which evidently has no interest at all in concerning itself with Syria. We have once again received news in this time of Lent of something dramatic, namely that the neo-governmental forces that have replaced the Assad regime are perpetrating in some regions and in some cities, such as Aleppo in Syria, massacres of a truly large scale. Massacres in which break-time Christian communities are particularly targeted. And the other reality of that religious sectarian family that I mentioned to you the other time, the news that has come in, which I have sought to gather through unofficial information channels, reveals a genuine advance of neo-governmental troops of Islamic terrorist origin who are massacring Christians in the villages where Christians still reside, who did not wish to leave. They did not want to leave because with Assad, naturally the mainstream has once again more and more pushed through here of what official narrative that people swallow. Assad has been portrayed for years as the ultimate dictator. Too bad they don't notice what we have around here. Now Assad is finished, and Putin is the new dictator. But I'll come back to this point. What I would like to say is why the mainstream, we're talking about Europe and we're talking about Italy for a few years now, has not stopped every day telling us about the Russian siege in Ukraine. And yet this same mainstream is completely silent about Syria. Does anyone know how to answer this question of mine? This is an earnest appeal addressed to analysts, if any are available, to scholars of geopolitics, and to strategists in international politics, who are called upon to engage actively. Why indeed? For a couple of years, we have always been there, enduring the relentless narrative of a humiliated, attacked Ukraine. Moreover, this is what the President of the Italian Republic stated, having delivered his remarks in a manner reminiscent of Hitler, a leader who not only invaded Ukraine, but also set in motion events that led to the extermination of its population. Indeed, the reality is that the population is being exterminated. Yet curiously, it is never mentioned, for example, in any reported account. And these remain the indisputable facts at hand. Before Russia invaded Ukraine, because it has always been regarded as an unequivocal act of invasion, we witnessed over the preceding years the Ukrainian Revolution of February 2014, which led to the flight and deposition of the Ukrainian President Bergoglio Yanukovych. And then in Crimea they began pro-Russian protests suppressed in blood by the regime, by the Ukrainian government, which in the meantime has found in the warmonger Vladimir Zelensky, who wants at all costs to continue the war, except now to see that Trump wants to make peace between the two. But we know of news that circulated on the internet and that no one showed, namely that Trump, the pro-Russian Ukrainian people, is being persecuted in a way that is better not to tell, setting fire to Zelensky, the one who sets fire to pro-Russian churches in Ukraine. However, beyond this, because then one can form their own opinion, why does Putin decide to conquer Ukraine? What are the wrongs and what are the rights? Certainly, Putin has indeed invaded Ukraine. This is an act that evidently from a moral point of view. My dear children, no one can ever truly approve. Obviously, one cannot approve the invasion of a territory that is not one's own. We all agree on this. However, one must not have double standards. Ukraine is a huge nation bordering Russia, and it is also home to several pro-Russian territories situated between Russia and Ukraine. Just before the Russian invasion, they were break-time point twink on the verge of becoming NATO outposts. Even Bergoglio said that the dog was barking at the doors of Putin's Russia. Bergoglio said it, even though he has never been fully pro-Russian. However, he said something interesting in that case, namely that Ukraine, in the Donbass regions, in the People's Republics of Donetsk and Lugansk, have declared themselves independent. Regarding the Ukrainian government in May, let's see a bit of what seems to be 2014. Here in May 2014, these republics of Donetsk and Lugansk, with the secessionist forces, they declared themselves autonomous republics with respect to Ukraine. They speak Russian there, you understand? Well, I don't know. It's as if Slovenia at a certain point, how to say, Slovenia invades Italy, you know? I don't know. Well, anyway, dear children, I wouldn't want to, because then naturally on the 5th of September 2014, these things must be known. The presidents of Russia and Ukraine, with the presence of representatives from the two people's republics, met in Minsk and signed a protocol to establish a ceasefire, but repeatedly violated. So, when in February 2022, Russia invades Ukraine, someone who is willing to recount the background, someone who is willing to say who Zelensky is, someone willing to say here it is, or this. I emphasize the courageous intervention, for example, of a net of those who want to open a debate in which it is understood what is truly the real intention of Putin, of Russia, on one side, and what is that of Zelensky, of the pro-government Ukrainian party. What are the real intentions before reaching peace? Here, and this is Ukraine, I'm neither pro-Ukrainian nor pro-Russian naturally. Personally, I am free to express what I think, but I would like to tell you why Ukraine has been talked about for 2 years. Every day, not a day goes by without us being told about what is happening in Ukraine. And in Syria, nothing. One might say, there is considerable discussion about Palestine, and even the Gaza Strip receives a significant amount of attention. So why should Syria be left out? Can you answer this question? Today, I express as a guide of the small remnant, which is a significant reality, whatever our opponents may say, who always pretend that we do not exist, except when they need to attack us with defamation. I express on behalf of the small Catholic remnant solidarity and support, expressed wholeheartedly for the Syrian people, to Syria, a country often overlooked. And it's not that we are witnessing targeted bombings like the Russian troops do, because there we are evidently present. One might say yes, but probably this happens because Ukraine is in Europe, Ukraine is here, Ukraine is right next door. I remember when I was in Hungary and then in Romania, you could feel the air of Ukraine. It was close. There was even a sign at a certain point for Ukraine. But Syria is not on the other side of the world, however. It is the Middle East, all right, not Europe. However, it's not like it's on the side of, the Philippines or Australia. Syria and the Middle East are lands that belong to us from the perspective of Christian tradition. There's Damascus, for example. There's Aleppo, So we are, not sure if Antioch's there too. Anyway, we are now in the presence, not of an action, military operation, where inevitably, even break-10 point 3 civilians are killed. We are witnessing a military action that is completely out of control, carried out by neo-government militias of Islamic and terrorist origin, that is, acting in the name of Allah. They talk about killing, specifically the Christians, and intend, without hesitation, to drive the Christians out of Syria. So how do we handle it? Every day we are shown images from Ukraine, which is necessary, but then about Syria, instead they tell us nothing. Why? Some suspicions arise. For example, it becomes known that regarding the alignments in favor of Ukraine, pay attention. Well, what are the alignments in favor of Ukraine? NATO, the European Union, Argentina, Australia, Azerbaijan, Cambodia, Colombia, Israel, Israel, Japan, Jordan, Kosovo, New Zealand, Pakistan, Serbia, South Korea, Sudan, Switzerland, and Syria. From 2024. So from 2024, Syria switched to support Ukraine. But if you go and look Statistical data will show you that Syria's support until 2024, that is, until before the collapse of Assad's regime, was given to Russia, not to Ukraine. So there's something that doesn't add up, as they say. Evidently, there is a genuine desire to ensure that public opinion remains wholly indifferent to what is unfolding in Syria. Here and there we have news scattered about what is happening in Syria. Thank God there are those who inform us, as I was telling you, about what is happening. However, if you search, you'll notice the latest news. In some cases, I won't name the big blogs, is from last month. Monsignor Vigano, in recent weeks, has issued a call, which we have warmly embraced, to pray for the persecuted Christians in Syria. Could it be that since Christians are suffering persecution in Syria, people choose to simply pretend that nothing is happening? Could it be that because it concerns Christians, then obviously it should not be talked about? Some suspicion arises. If one remembers what General Vannacci said, whom many in Italy do not esteem, but Vannacci has the merit of speaking plainly. Call a spade, as it now seems to be happening on a global level. A new political version is increasingly clearly imposing itself, no longer the political jargon, diplomatic, Andreotti style, where one always tries, as also happens in the church, to keep everything standing, but call a spade, as for example Trump does, and as Putin has been doing for years now. It seems to me that Vannacci said some interesting things. He went to the European Parliament, and to put it bluntly, he told von der Leyen that she is concerned about arming Europe against Russia, forgetting that in France the Muslims, they or whoever for them, destroy the churches, set fire to the churches. Why isn't this discussed? Is it anti-Christian resentment? Are these lobbies truly Satanists, and do they want to destroy the Christian identity? And isn't it possible that those who rally behind the Ukrainian flag risk, without realizing it, riding this anti-Christian wave? There is anti-Semitism, and woe to anyone who touches it. January 27th, Holocaust Remembrance Day, and rightly so, the Shoah and the concentration camps. Woe betide anyone who touches the Jews. The Christians, on the other hand, in Syria, can be crucified as children at their doorsteps, while their parents are slaughtered and they are shown the severed heads. And no one does anything. In Europe, there is concern about preventing the Russian advance. Russia has never said it wants to conquer Europe anyway, and meanwhile it goes unspoken that, I think, I have seen it with my own eyes in France and Spain, the anti-Christian resentment is striking. To Brother Celestino with bare feet, they didn't let him enter the churches, you understand? At the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona and the Cathedral of Seville, if I remember correctly. The Christian symbols disappear. Instead, you see mosques with golden domes being built everywhere. Got it? Everywhere there are our Muslim brothers and friends, in burqas and religious garments, especially on Fridays. You go to a city like Montpellier, and it feels like you're in Mecca. Understood? Then if the friars appear in their habits, or our little sisters with their veils accompanying me to Montpellier, people look at them as if they've come out of a museum. The French people, the people in France where Christian churches are not. It is necessary to remember Notre Dame de Paris. They are destroyed, set on fire, but evidently no one takes care of this. So when we talk about Syria and Ukraine, without wanting to, we are probably unconsciously referring to two paradigms. The first is the paradigm of the total radical will and decision to censor the extermination and persecution against the Christian identity. The second, that of Ukraine, however, is the image of the martyr nation, of the persecuted nation, of the invaded nation, which must be protected at all costs. Double standards. Let's listen to Vannacci's brief, reflective speech at the European Parliament, about 1.5 minutes.
Io, 1 minuto. 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 1
Thank you, Presidency. Thank you, colleagues. Mrs. von der Leyen, where? Monsignor Nostra and his cash not behind you, Madam von der Leyen? Why is Mrs. von der Leyen afraid of this parliament and invokes Article 122, the state of emergency, to circumvent the only European institution elected by the people and to indebt us and our children for 850 billions of euros to spend on weapons? And yet the Russian tanks are not in Warsaw, nor in Budapest, nor in Prague. And Paris is not burning under a hail of blows. What is burning in France are the Christian churches. These are the real emergencies, Mrs. von der Leyen. European families are the ones who cannot make ends meet and do not have the money to pay gas bills, which the reckless policies of your Commission have exponentially increased. The real emergencies are autarky, dictatorship, and the suspension of democracy, as happened a few days ago in Romania, which the technocrats in Brussels support and endorse. The real emergencies are the attacks and the crime and the acts of crime that almost daily illegal immigrants carry out at the expense and detriment of European citizens in European nations. These are the real emergencies, Mrs. von der Leyen. Not the fear of seeing a Russian soldier with a fur hat at the doorstep. And come to Parliament and do not be afraid, because here you will not find a platoon of Cossacks with sabers, but rather the representatives of the European people who want to have their say about their future. Here I would like to immediately emphasize, my dear children, that we must face everything with the rosary in hand, naturally. The rosary for us is what solves everything. It is the strength of prayer. It is the strength of faith that changes history. The rosary is truly capable of guiding history, both personal and global. There's no doubt about that. For that reason, we are currently insisting a lot on the consecration of Russia. Not because we would like to seem like those who one day were on Russia's side, but why? The Madonna asked for it. However, I would like to say that Vannacci's statements, in light of the very background I am citing, namely a resounding silence regarding the extermination of the Syrian Christian people, the fact that Syria is not talked about, do not appear to be ideological words. When someone comes, moreover, with this courage, this clarity, this frankness, with data in hand, one must listen to them. Listen to him. Vannacci, at the European Parliament, said something sensible. He told von der Leyen that she is arming us with 850 billion euros taken from European taxpayers to prevent the Russian attack. How come, though, you do not realize that at home we have churches being burned, illegal immigrants causing major problems when they are left to themselves, and there is no real and true integration and crime is increasingly widespread? Evidently there is. The will to carry on by the globalist powers, somewhat like what happened with the Church, a false narrative. Bergoglio is the Pope. Pope Francis is the Pope of mercy. There has never been a Pope like him. With the Pope, the Church has changed. This is all narrative, false, because the true narrative is that, for example, of Don Minutella, that is, he is not the Pope who he is placed there on behalf of the world's powers, elected by the mafia of San Gallo. Benedict, if he were to say, did not resign, and what happened to him? Minutla, what happened to him? Criminalized, labeled as a kidnapper of women, making money, etc. I would not want this identical defamatory initiative to be applied to those who dare to offer a different interpretation of what is happening at the geopolitical level in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. So we must lie down and accept from von der Leyen and the European Parliament that we must defend ourselves from Russia. And that Zelensky, on the other hand, is reliable. Got it? Putin is the enemy, Zelensky is reliable. All this naturally makes us reflect. With time short, I've drawn a few conclusions, though I wished I could say more. But today we are praying the rosary a lot. We are praying a lot for Russia, not in favor of Russia, but for Russia. It means for the realization of the third secret of Fatima, and for the urgent consecration of Russia. However, today, on the eve of St. Joseph, I invite all the small remnant, also in the Rosary this afternoon, at 6:30 to pray the Holy Rosary for the Syrian people. Assad is apparently in exile in Russia, but I needed to verify. I haven't had time. He should be there. And meanwhile, over there are the military forces nearby. To Galatia, Al-Qaeda are advancing. While we speak of it, the terror of the poor Christians, our martyred brothers who are being targeted in general silence. A thanks again, ever deeper. May it perhaps reach Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, who also had this other merit of raising this issue, otherwise unknown, that in Syria there is a massacre. Every day they talk about Ukraine. The same people who talk about Ukraine almost decide to remain completely silent about Syria. Well, now instead there's the other part I mentioned to you a bit quickly, because time is of the essence, which concerns, as you can see from the window, the fake photo of Bergoglio, by the way, Andreatti Cionci. Yesterday morning, we dedicated our window of saints and coffee, as you know, to the photo that appeared on Sunday, I believe, of Bergoglio, taken from behind in the chapel of the Gemelli Hospital with the cassock and the violet stole. And we made a series of considerations alongside this photo. Yesterday, however, there was this sensational intervention by Dr. 𝐼ONCI, towards whom we express our congratulations, because he and his staff, which he indeed has a staff, apparently continue to collaborate with him. They were able to demonstrate that this photo is not from 2 days ago, but actually dates back. In fact, it certainly dates back because he has indeed proven it. 𝐼ONCI, it dates back. Nothing less than, apparently, a week before. Anyhow, 𝐼ONCI demonstrates in detail the truth of this thing here. If no denial comes, because at this point the Vatican press office, and especially Vatican News, which 𝐼ONCI rightly targets by saying to them, "You are liars," he tells them exactly that. You are liars. The photo is not from 2 days ago, but dates back to some time earlier. The Vatican News, along with the Vatican Press, in fact presented this striking photograph as if it had been captured 2 full days ago. It is a lie, pure and simple. Now we are not surprised by this. In case it were needed, it is further confirmation of the fact that the Church of Satan reigns there, because where there is falsehood, and in these years, we have seen all sorts of things as we had never seen before. Where there is deceit, the Church teaches the devil exists. Jesus calls Satan the father of lies. There is no need to add much. Jesus calls Satan the father of lies. We have maintained for years that what Bergoglio leads is not the Catholic Church governed by a false pope. This option is, Father will lead, and those who follow him, including Dr. 𝐼ONCI, as you will see, it's only a matter of time before reaching a dead end. I said it from the beginning, a dead end, banging your head against the wall because they expect a gentle pope to resolve things. Now, while we sincerely congratulate Dr. 𝐼ONCI on his remarkable achievements, we remain somewhat puzzled by the rather unexpected conclusions he reaches. Dr. 𝐼ONCI himself, that is to say, clearly states that we are truly in attendance. The conclusion of his report, indeed it appears, is that the photo is not from 2 days ago, but rather from 2 or 3 days ago. In reality, truly, the photo, which, as the evidence clearly shows, dates from several days earlier. Therefore, it is further refuted, indeed, beyond any doubt, that the voice would not even be that of Bergoglio. On the 6th of March, anyway, I would like to say, and without hesitation, that this is my final point. And in conclusion, that is, Dr. 𝐼ONCI aptly highlights, as demonstrated by his many years of work, that the photo is not from that period, namely from 2 days ago, but is in fact earlier, from the 6th of March. And that, therefore, the Vatican News and the official Vatican information sources have told falsehoods. They have deceived the people. This is now on a planetary level, as we were saying about Syria and Ukraine, where every day there is talk of poor Ukraine, while there is complete silence about Syria. This is now a fact. Whoever wants to fall for it, let them fall. However, be careful with the perspective, Dr. 𝐤'𝐿𝐴ONCI, because you then make a type of statement from which problematic consequences, unfortunately for you, arise. I say this with enormous respect, and they are as follows. The first one, she claims that in the Vatican there is an administrator, meaning there would be a single person or multiple individuals who secretly lead and govern the church, in contrast to Bergoglio. And this has led us in a fantasy style. Sometimes what characterizes it, some revealing clues of this, the flags of the Holy See, the Swiss Guards, etc. Now, if it is true that there is this administrator, there are two things here. The first, either 𝐤'𝐿𝐴ONCI knows it from reliable sources, but then the game is not fair, because we should not know it. It's not right. This is not correct. It would be helpful if Dr. 𝐤'𝐿𝐴ONCI said, "Look, sodalizio, sodale, Maria, and small remainder, you're making a mistake because I provide you with proof." But it is correct. My word that in the Vatican there is the true Pope, or one who governs on his own behalf, and that Bergoglio. Therefore it is worth nothing. And then one can feel a bit more at ease, let's say. I don't know from where. 𝐤'𝐿𝐴ONCI, beyond the fantasy scoops he comes up with, like the one about the Swiss Guards, that there is an administrator in the Vatican. Well, if it were so, and he must provide more concrete evidence, clues are not enough. Because the matter is serious, it is serious, especially if then the official informative channels of the Holy See deceive. Because then it means, Dr. 𝐤'𝐿𝐴ONCI, that this administrator is of no use at all. It is a useless thing. Am I wrong? I mean, if there is an administrator in the Vatican who has to govern in place of Bergoglio secretly, and yet we continue to witness this burlesque, it means that this administrator is not worth a fig. Not worth a fig. Because once again we are right. That is the Church of Santa, not the Church of Jesus. Understood? There is no hidden administrator. All those of you expecting a solution. 𝐤'𝐿𝐴ONCI of the next Pope, like 𝐤'𝐿𝐴ONCI. Now I will tell you incredibly, he says, I'll tell you right away, concludes by saying, you will see that then the new Pope, when the new Pope comes, will solve things. But how the new Pope, Dr. 𝐤'𝐴ONCI? But do not contradict yourself. But where should he come from? Who pulls the white rabbit dressed in white out of the hat? Explain it to me, explain to us. When all's done, indeed, you see very well that Rome is the seat of the Antichrist. There is a false church that the prophecies announce. Why did you want to close yourself off to the prophetic dimension without wanting to disregard the canonical way? Because the two, as Benedict XVI taught, are not in conflict. And yet you do not want to realize that. So even Dr. 𝐤'𝐴ONCI, while truly deserving of our heartfelt congratulations for having uncovered this remarkable scoop, concludes by saying that the next Pope, get ready, will sort things out, will put everything in proper order. But what about that new Pope? And who is then meant to read it, Dr. 𝐤'𝐴ONCI, or the so-called criminalized Bergoglians? Do you really want to shoot yourself in the foot? Look, there will be no new legitimate Pope. There is no principle of supplet ecclesia in this case. Why is the conclave that follows the one preceded by the 2013 conclave? You were the one who sponsored the synod, who sponsored a council to shed light on the 2013 conclave. How is it possible that now you expect something from the next conclave? Look, in this way, you are no different from 𝐸𝐿𝐴. The version of Father Faré is nothing but a soft version, let's say, unicum, like when there were the Arians and the semi-Arians. There are the unicum and the semi-unicum. The unicum are with the Pope, Francis, and the Catholic Church. The semi-unicum are those like Father Faré and his followers who say Pope Francis is not the Pope, yet that is the Catholic Church. But if that is the Catholic Church, it's obvious that the next Pope, the die is cast, the matter is resolved. And so in the meantime, what do we drink? Is there an administrator? But if there is an administrator, what kind of serious person allows these nonsense? Regarding the photo, which is not from a few days ago, but from the 6th of March, we are truly facing an extremely dramatic situation, one that calls for thoughtful and courageous reflection. Indeed, it takes a great deal of bravery to understand that this is not the Catholic Church, for it simply cannot be regarded as such. All those who have followed Pope Francis and remained silent about his heresies are complicit in the heresies and, in fact, belong. With the Mass celebrated in union, why don't you talk about this anymore, Dr. �ciONCI? The Mass in union with Pope Francis is not only illicit, it is truly a schismatic Mass, because Bergoglio is not the Pope at the head of another church. Then everyone can call it as they wish. We define it based on the prophecies. The Church of Santa, as Monsignor used to say. Fulton Sheen, Antichrist's mystic body. How do you want to call it? Call it as you wish. It's not the Catholic Church, please. Stop deceiving people, making them believe, especially, Father, that that is the Catholic Church. This is a downright deception, and we hope you are acting in good faith in this, as I wish to believe. However, if Father had acted in good faith, he would have accepted the public confrontation with me. We were friends, we used to talk. Suddenly he shows up, and then suddenly, how to say, he gets offended in a loud tone. But excuse me, but come into the house. You act like that, and then act offended. It's like a thief demanding apologies when told to leave. What a thing! Father, when will I do it? Then I suggested to him a public confrontation in front of the people, because the people have the right duty, both those who followed him and those who stayed with us, to know the truth. He refused. He refused, like all the others. Well then, I'm not sure there's good faith. Because if there was good faith, it would have been nice to meet and exchange Easter greetings, Father Foray. Why didn't you propose a discussion with me? Why do you act behind the scenes, holding your club-like masses, recruiting members without anyone knowing, growing in numbers, using the methods of the small remnant, the regional representatives, those things go where we went. It's an incredible thing. It is a shameful thing, I would say, deceitful. Immediately, done in secret, no one must know anything, then the entanglements ally. Among themselves, the priests against Don Minutella and the sodality, a sort of antagonism, no. This cannot come from God. If it were in good faith, Father Foray, I'm not talking about 𝐵𝐼ONCI. Now, if it were in good faith, he should have accepted the confrontation. How can you deceive people by making them believe that that is? The Catholic Church, a church complicit in heresy. The Catholic Church complicit in heresy has never existed. St. Augustine says so. Ecclesia in faith, virgin in heresy, harlot. I really don't know how people manage to fall into the trap. So Dr. 𝐵𝐼ONCI made this sensational, interesting surprise. He reached this extraordinary conclusion. It's a pity that then he says, without mentioning the administrator, because if it were logical, he should be able to say, I'm sorry that the administrator, whom I think is in the Vatican, has not intervened in this matter. What should the administrator intervene on when there is heresy? Dr. 𝐶IONCI, the Church is not Parliament. It is not Palazzo Chigi. You need to understand that. An administrator who remains silent on Bergoglio's heresy, an administrator, as you suppose, who stays quiet. Then when the gospel has been changed, he doesn't have a vision of the Church. He has a political vision and only intervenes when he can. Are you kidding? All needed to rise up, from the administrator to everyone else, the tenants. Got it? Here. I don't know if I was clear. Well, dear friends, this was a bit of the situation on the eve of the feast of St. Joseph. This afternoon I await you at 6:30 for the recitation of the Holy Rosary for the Syrian people. Let's pray for our Christian brothers who are in Syria. And then this evening at 9 o'clock, don't forget, there it is, the post. Share, share, share in the catechesis on the eagle and the sun. The 10th part, we are at the conclusion of my book, which you can always request for availability from Radio Domina, in which we take around. This evening at 9 o'clock, we are probably expecting the final section of the prologue, then gradually. We will proceed with the meditation on the Gospel of John, which helps us grow in faith, as you can see. Because I repeat, it is a compendium of Christian identity. Please support the project. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow in Verona, then on Saturday in Osimo, in the Marche region, and on Sunday in Lucca, Tuscany.